back again with Pops on Pop's Corner. Today we're going to be talking about one of the foundational gems that's probably not on the tip of everybody's tongue anymore, but it should be. It's a real directive of the way that the gym culture has gone. They establish strength as a respected thing. Tell us about it.
I think we all sometimes look back in our lives and have regrets of things that possibly we could have done but didn't get a chance to do. I am a gear guy, and I am inspired by gear and by others' brilliance and ideas, and I embrace that greatly. At a very young age, I was able to go to all the great barbell companies and builders out of a passion that 10 or 12-year-old kid wanted to see this. It was not very common, but the one I missed that would have changed my life, and I really felt that fate later in life proved to me that this was a great thing that I missed in my life, was to visit Costa Mesa, Bob Zuver's gym. This was a place that, if I could ever say that from what little you could find in books about to read, was probably the greatest iron gym ever done, and for many reasons. Little known that back in the day, before Westside was ever thought of, Zuver had a passion to have a complete outfitted powerlifting team. All the weights that Bill Peanuts West used were borrowed from Bob Zuver. Mm-hmm. Bob was a minister. He was an ex-Navy SEAL, or frogman as they called him in the day, and he had a passion to create things bigger and better than anyone. And he was, of course, tied with the Navy, so I guess at San Diego they had a large scrapyard that anything that he wanted he could get at a very good price. And he had the vision to build this building. He would go out in the desert with his son and bring a few rocks back a day and hand lay these stones to build the building. And he decided to make everything inside the biggest and the best. And it even came down to when he coached, the place was so tight with equipment that he had a door that had 4 cups of coffee on it, and he would lay on the door and they would haul him up to the ceiling and he would coach from above. So his lifters would have room. Everything was done in the vein of being big. The door that he constructed by hand weighed 4,000 pounds, but you could open it with 2 fingers. It was on a pivot that he designed that it would work, didn't know it was going to work, used a 320-pound dumbbell for the handle. The way to the door was paved in barbell plates. There was a giant Zuver man outside. There were things that it looked like Universal Studios, which was close by. It looked like a surreal place to train. When you walked in, the water fountain was a fire hydrant. They had a trolley system to bring you dumbbells where you could do dips. The man was possessed. I mean, yeah. And all the stuff worked. He had a bench that was only set up for the champions when they visited to use. It weighed 659 pounds, just the bench. And his 2 favorite plates, which we have here in our museum, was on that bar. And when Paul Anderson came, or Terry Todd, or superstar Billy Graham, or Bert Elliott, or any of the famous strongmen, that was the bar that they lifted on. He was establishing traditions. He had, when Ken Leistner visited, the big barrel, which if you could clean this beer barrel full with shot in water and press it overhead, you got on the list of honor, and you got a certificate from this. This was a man that was a visionary beyond, I couldn't shine his shoes. He was, to me, that brilliant of a person because he went ahead and did things and saw things that no one did. He didn't copy anybody. they wish to copy him.
Do you think he was too far ahead? Do you think that it just was too much too soon for the populace?
I think his will was so strong and his backing was that solid that he didn't really care if it met and changed the world. But whatever his world was, how far it extended, he changed the heck out of it. Right. I mean, I had to travel eventually to visit his son and to share some of the memories and pictures and whatever of really what his dad and the Zuver gym was about. And that changed my life.
I think that, coming from an East Coast standpoint, you grew up in Pennsylvania, right?
New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay, sorry. So you grew up in the Northeast,
yep.
And we talked about it a little bit with the Culver Street boys. And
oh, gosh.
This dungeon-esque mentality. Do you think that gym would have worked anywhere but California?
Wow, that's a good question.
I mean, California at that time, especially, it sounds like it's always been the land of opportunity. It's the gold rush. It's Hollywood. It's the land of opportunity if you're willing to take the opportunity, right?
Right. Everything. I mean, lifting was very popular where I came from, but it was a lot of basic stuff, a lot of homemade stuff, a lot of. If you saw the equipment back then, it's not much different at a distance, but close up. The benches were narrow. They didn't adjust. There was no wheels on anything. There was no plate storage. There was all these things that looked similar to what we have today, but that didn't work that way. If I ever walked in the Zuver's gym, even as a teenager, I probably would have never left. I would have been that drawn to it. I am to this day. I can't give anyone I know in the industry more credit for being brilliant. And that's saying a lot. I mean, I've been around, and I love it. But the things he came up with what he had to work with, blows my mind.
The Zuver plates that are downstairs.
Yes, sir.
The 200 pounds.
Yes.
What do you think was going on in his head? Because we all know how frustrating it can be to move a 100-pound plate. These are 200-pound plates.
And they were designed by him. They were designed so the man would counterbalance, and he would always come up standing up straight. They were only 8 ever made because they figured Paul Anderson would use them when he came. They were only in one picture, so they weren't sure if they even existed.
Right.
As subsequent stories were told. And I had to travel to meet the man, the son, who said he was almost like a slave because Dad said, weld this or do this or paint this, and he was just a young kid.
Yeah.
But he did share the wealth of information. He did share his family with me. He brought me up to a higher level than probably of awareness than I ever had about what I think I excel at, designing things. But Bob Zuver made me look like a fool. I mean, I was in such awe of how he went about creating things from nothing.
Do you think that the reality surpasses the legend in this case? I mean, you hear about certain things, you hear about certain lifts that are done, you see certain equipment that's built. Do you think that at the given time that things were going on, it was just like people didn't even know how to comprehend it and share it?
I believe that's a true statement. And sometimes it's like saying right next door they're working on the atomic bomb, but it's just a house with a bunch of guys that come and go kind of thing.
Right.
That doesn't take away from what was going on in the house, the level of greatness, the level of creativity and awareness. It's just that everyone has to be somewhere. I think as accomplishments in a person, it's not 1/10 of what has been told about that gym. I think the very start of serious powerlifting, of odd lifts. He had it all covered. He had a grip section. He had a lat pull down that just the loading pin weighed 150 pounds. There were things in there that when you walked in, you were inspired to get bigger, think bigger, feel better, bigger. Those things he was giving to you before you even touched the first weight.
So you had to be strong to even get in the door. Strength was the price of admission, right?
Well, the thing was, it looked like you had to be strong.
Right.
Because would a guy walk up to a door that's this thick and gigantic with a 300-pound dumbbell, they would walk away. But a guy that had it in his heart that wanted to try would pull on that handle, and from that, the reward would be the door would come open.
Tell us a little bit about the timeline of this gym. You know, when did it start? When did it close? What was the evolution?
The evolution of it was, I believe, in the 40s, late 40s. Bob was out of the Navy SEALs. It wasn't even the SEALs then, it was Frogmen, but it was the first group of SEALs. Mm-hmm. And he started his gym, and as I said, he built it stone by stone. He could only get 2 500-pound rocks in the back of his pickup truck from the desert a day, so it didn't come up overnight. But he started the gym. It seemed like he welcomed anyone that had the heart to do it. But it drew people from all over the country and the world to come see this place. The who's who of that time did find their way to Zuver's. They did. So I lost my train of thought.
Well, we were just saying the evolution of it and when it closed.
Oh yeah, okay. As it went along, it had its heyday probably in the 50s and 60s, and I believe about 1974 or thereabouts, they tried to really diversify, build gym equipment, deliver it, run the gym, and also set up 2 bodybuilding gyms that were a little bit lower key. And it was one of the first times that the females were welcomed. Bob's wife was a dream, wonderful lady, and she supported him a great bit, and that's what the ladies' gyms came from. But as all things, you know, you run out of steam, you run out of energy, whatever, it finally folded. And I guess the parts of that gym, I would love to have all of them. I don't know where they reside or if they were scrapped like what they started to be. I was lucky enough to be able to be welcomed into the family and have some of those pieces from that gym. The part of my life that I lost not seeing it are now here with me, and they're safe.
What did it mean to you to have one of your creations, the JX squat, loaded down to the tilt, 1,600 pounds, 1,000 pounds of felt weight, with those 200-pound Zuver plates capping that off, photographed, shared on a media platform that brought the Zuver name to literally tens of thousands of people, right, that had, in some cases, never heard of it, and some had long since forgotten, yeah, and then others, it was as true to them in some way as it is to you. There's the fascinating thing for me when I saw that photograph and I saw the comments was that there were people that immediately recognized those, yeah, for what they are.
Well, if the inspiration from using those plates and the honor that I sincerely intended by putting them on something that we created, it was showing him the respect that I always will have. And having the best of the old with perhaps something new, well, it shows the continuity, how we move along, how we're still growing, how his life to this day still affects me and my business. Because there isn't a level of excellence that he established, at least to me and others, that I always aspire to go to. So yeah, that was a great moment for us. And it held together, and it was built in a way that I think he would nod and say, that's a good job.